Hello friends, welcome to my channel Pediatrics and Life Tips. Today I will talk about achondroplasia in children. Achondroplasia is the most common type of short-limb disproportionate short stature or dwarfism. It is a worldwide necessity to emphasize the positive aspects of these short people abilities and lives rather than viewing the issue of short stature as a disability. First, few words about anatomy and physiology. Bony skeleton is divided into two parts, axial skeleton and the pendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton consists of skull, vertebrae, ribs and sternum. A pendicular skeleton consists of bones of the extremities. Dwarfing conditions are referred to as short limb or short trunk types. Additional terms used to describe the segment of limb involvement include rhizomelic, that is proximal, mesomelic, that is middle, or acromelic, that is distal. Achondroplasia is a short limb dwarfing condition. Sitting height is within normal range. Extremity involvement is rhizomelic. Arms and thigh are more severely involved than the forearm, legs, hands, and feet. Genetics and inheritance of achondroplasia. Primary defect is abnormal decreased endochondral ossification due to mutation in fibroblast growth factor receptor 3 gene on chromosome 4. It is transmitted as an autosomal dominant trait. Most parents are of average size and have no family history of dwarfism. Risk of the parents producing a second affected child is almost negligible. When both parents have achondroplasia, 50% of their offspring are heterozygous and affected. 25% are homozygous, which is fatal in the first few months of life, and 25% are unaffected. When one parent has achondroplasia, the chance of transmitting this gene to each child is 50%. Worldwide, achondroplasia is the most common skeletal dysplasia, affecting about 1 in every 40,000 children. About 80% of all little people have achondroplasia. It occurs with equal frequency in males and female, and it occurs in all races with equal frequency. Now I will discuss the clinical features. Achondroplasia is evident at birth as a disproportionate short-limb dwarfism. There is enlarged neurocranium, frontal bossing, flattening of the nasal bridge, mid-face hypoplasia, and a relatively prominent mandible. Anteroposterior diameter of the chest is flattened, lower ribs are flared, and the abdomen protrudes. Cranial enlargement and the poor head control increases the risk of extension injuries in the baby. In achondroplasia, gross motor development is delayed. Motor milestone, for example head control, independent sitting, standing and walking, may lag by 3 to 6 months. Speech and language problems may be caused by tongue thrust, but this often resolves spontaneously. Cognitive skills are preserved and intelligence is normal in achondroplasia. In achondroplasia, standing height is below 3rd percentile for both sexes. Adult heights typically are 118 to 145 cm for men and 112 to 136 cm for women. Sitting height is within normal limits. Upper limb involvement is rhizomelic, with proximal segment more severely affected than distal segments. Shoulder appear broad because of the normal development of clavicle and well-developed musculature. Short arms may contribute to bulky muscle mass. Loss of full extension of the elbow in the range of 15 to 30 degrees is usually present. Trident hand is common, which is the persistent space between the long and the ring fingers when approximation of the fingers is attempted in full extension. Fingertips reach the level of the hips, so there is difficulty with hygiene and dressing. Lower limb involvement is also rhizomelic, with hip flexion contractures, ligamentous laxity, external rotation of the extremities, and genu recurvatum before walking age. Tibia is bowed, resulting in significant genu varum and some degree of ankle varus. Gait is usually a waddling gait, and circumductive motion of the hips and the lower extremities occur on attempted running. Before walking, the child has a thoracolumbar kyphosis and lordosis in the interscapular thoracic region. Once independent ambulation is established, a lumbar lordosis with forward rotation of the pelvis develops. This results in prominent abdomen and buttocks. Dental crowding and malocclusion may result due to maxillary hypoplasia. Child has a small chest wall and pectus excavatum is present. Virtually all infants and children have large heads, although only a fraction have true hydrocephalus. Now I will discuss the complications and associated morbidities. Recurrent otitis media is common. Conductive hearing loss is present. It may be congenital or acquired. Snoring, obstructive sleep apnea, and sleeping with hyperextending neck may be due to upper airway obstruction. Recurrent episodes of pneumonia, cyanosis, and apnea may occur due to upper airway obstruction and small chest. Abnormal development of the base of the skull result in narrowing of the foramen magnum, which may cause brainstem compression, resulting in respiratory insufficiency, apnea, cyanotic episode, feeding problems, quadriparesis, and sudden death in young children. Chronic brainstem compression may also cause hypotonia in the first 2 years of life. Now, lumbar spinal stenosis usually does not occur until early adulthood. It may cause low back pain, leg pain, paresthesia, paraparesis, incontinence, and neurogenic claudication. This claudication may present initially as aching or tiredness of the lower limbs on walking or standing, and later sensation of tingling and numbness, and eventually weakness. Often pain is alleviated in squatting position or bending forward. In achondroplasia, signs of lower limb radiculopathy from nerve root compression or cauda equina syndrome are present in more than 50% of the patient. Obesity is also common. Now I will discuss the diagnosis of achondroplasia. Primary radiographic criteria for diagnosis include decrease in the interpedicular distance in the lumbar spine, square short iliac bones, short broad neck of the femur, shortening of the long tubular bones with metaphyseal flaring, and brachydactyly. Now the secondary radiographic criteria for diagnosis include anteroposterior shortening of the lumbar pedicles, dorsal concavity of the lumbar vertebra, long distal fibula, short distal ulna, and long ulnar stylet process. This is a typical radiographic findings in a child with achondroplasia. All tubular bones are short, fibula is relatively long compared to the tibia. Protrusion of epiphysis into the metaphysis of the distal femur, this is known as chevron deformity. Iliac bones are rounded, the acetabular roof is horizontal, and the sacrosciatic notches are small. On the right side is the radiograph of infant with achondroplasia. You can see the interpedicular narrowing of the 1st through 5th lumbar vertebrae, short round iliac bones, flat acetabular roof, short tubular bones with mild irregularities of the metaphysis. Lateral skull X-ray showing characteristic features of achondroplasia, which include frontal bossing, small foramen magnum, mid-face hypoplasia, and relatively enlarged skull than face. Lumbar spinal X-ray anteroposterior view showing progressive narrowing of the coronal interpedicular distance in lumbar spine, and there is a horizontal sacral position. Lateral spinal X-ray of a child with achondroplasia, it shows thoracolumbar kyphosis, narrow lumbar spinal canal, and concave posterior bodies. Upper extremity X-ray of a child with achondroplasia, humerus is markedly shortened, radial head frequently is dislocated, ulna is typically short with an elongated stylet process, proximal and middle phalanges of the hand are broader with greater shortening than the distal phalanges and metacarpals. X-ray lower extremity showing horizontal acetabular roof, small sacrosciatic notches, genu varum and ankle varum, relative overgrowth of the fibula, inverted V-shaped distal femoral physis, bowing usually affect the tibia more than the femur. X-ray hand of a child with achondroplasia, proximal and middle phalanges of the hand are broader with greater shortening than the distal phalanges and metacarpals. Brain MRI in 2 children with achondroplasia showing cervicomedullary compression at foramen magnum. Other studies in achondroplasia include somatosensory evoked potential abnormalities due to brainstem compression at the level of foramen magnum. Pulmonary function tests show decreased vital capacity. Sleep study may be performed if symptoms suggest upper airway obstruction. Prenatal diagnosis is available and has been used to diagnose homozygous achondroplasia. Now I will discuss the management of achondroplasia. Somatotropin, that is recombinant human growth hormone, can increase height of the patients. Greatest acceleration in growth velocity is seen during the first year of treatment and in those with the lowest growth velocity before treatment. For maximum benefit, it is recommended that therapy should be initiated at a younger age. Pulmonary function should be periodically monitored and respiratory complications such as apnea, pneumonia and cyanosis should be avoided. Orthopedic and surgical consultations are required for craniocervical stenosis, thoracolumbar kyphosis, spinal stenosis, angular deformities of the lower extremities, and for lengthening of the short extremities. Neurosurgery is required in foramen magnum decompression or spinal decompression in symptomatic patient. Otolaryngologist consultation is required for chronic otitis media management and tonsillectomy or adenidectomy for obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. Nutritional counseling is important. It should be started from early life as obesity is a lifelong issue. Now, most of the speech problems resolve with time, but children with persistent problem should be referred to a speech therapist. And genetic counseling is also important. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel.